Hi, hello, and welcome, or welcome back, I suppose. Quick note on the marker piece for today. I did already start this, actually a couple days before filming, but my marker started running out and I had nothing in a similar tone, so I just thought I'd mention it going in, so no, I didn't accidentally cut a chunk from the beginning or anything like that. And yes, I know that my end product will probably not look ideal because I'm going to have layering where I don't want layering, but it is what it is. And also, if you can hear my laptop screaming at me, I'm sorry. I don't know why it keeps doing that. I probably need to clean the fans. But I keep forgetting to do it, so I'll get there eventually. On to what we're actually here for. The book. This is one that I saw around Halloween, but my reservation only came in semi-recently, so here we are. I mean, I've had it for a little bit because I have mentioned God knows how many times the looming pile of borrowed books that I have, but this isn't a horror book or anything. It just, it would have been reviewed post-spooky season anyway, but I just, I saw it a little while ago. It's been on my little to-be-read pile, and, today we are looking at They by Kay Dick, a dystopian novel about individuality, creativity, and the importance of holding on to these values. Seen through the early light, Kane's house looked magnificent. It's a simple opener, but it works well enough, and it is followed up by our first sign of Kay Dick's really beautiful visuals. She's incredible at describing any given location. Everything is very vivid and real, and I think it's a great way of feeling grounded in a book that can, at times, be hard to follow. You know where you are at any given moment in a book that can sometimes make you wonder when you are, because at first I kind of thought this book was non-linear, and by the end I'm actually not 100% sure, but I think it is a linear book, because this doesn't follow a general plot line as one might expect. It's not A to B plot. It's not they arrive going to here's how this person or group is standing against them over a period of time, and then there is a resolution or anything like that. It really is unusual storytelling, but I kind of like it for that. I wasn't sure at first. It's very transient, I think is the right way to describe it. Each chapter, if I recall correctly, it might not be each chapter, it might be a couple working together, but if I remember, each chapter has its own set of characters, with our narrator being the only constant. So sometimes locations can remain the same, but characters don't, other than our narrator, who we can presume is the same throughout. I mean, generally because the narrative voice doesn't shift, and there's always this mention of them having their dog with them, and I know that seems kind of odd to bring up, but it is another constant. And I did struggle a little at first with the changing characters, if I'm completely honest, and that isn't the author's fault at all. It isn't a case of a large group of characters that's hard to keep track of by mistake. We're not following one group here. It's not a case of we are in a situation where I have to remember a million different names. It's actually not 100% important to always remember names once you've got into the next chapter. It's just the way of the world that she's built, If you're not the way they expect you to be, you won't be in one place for long. Either that, or you will be, bare minimum, forced into conformity. So this is what I was saying earlier with this transient lifestyle of this book. We see our narrator never existing in one space for long, so she's not existing with the same people for long. And alternatively, even if she is in one place for a couple of chapters, the people around her can't or won't remain. And at first I assumed I assumed it was just me not being able to remember people well, but then I figured out that no, these are just new people. I don't recall names actually being repeated, and if they are, again, that is my blindness to that sort of thing, so my apologies. But like I say, I don't remember characters lasting much more than 1, maybe 2 chapters. And while it's not my favourite aspect of this, purely because I got confused with it, I understand how and why it works. I think it is interesting and it works really well within the world she's created. I just struggled with it, and I think it's worth knowing that going in, that no, you're not struggling to keep up with characters and there's this huge cast and people are coming back. You're not going to have to worry about that. Remember characters in the space that you're in, move on. And that works for each chapter, as far as I can remember. And admittedly, there are still things that I'm trying to understand. There's like a real violence to these kids. Especially they're attacking like animals and stuff. If I remember, you don't actually see them attacking any animals, but it is explained that that is what they've been doing. And we see some dead animals, and it's explained how they died and things like that, but we don't ever actually see the children attacking them. But it's sort of one of those things that I was struggling to fully understand. And there are other things in it as well, like there's some stuff early on, but I spent a good whack of my life reading books that felt near incomprehensible on the first read, be that down to author's intention or my brain having some like smooth time, so stuff was just sliding right off. But in that time, it became strikingly clear that books like that need time. Well, that and a brain with ridges. But my point is, I'd have loved something like this at university, in a place where I can not only dive into it for myself, but I also get to discuss it with other people openly, rather than I get to discuss it here and then you guys can talk about it if you happen to have read it. Well, to be fair, the if you happen to have read it is also a problem I had at uni, given that sometimes it did feel like I was the only one in any given class talking about anything that we've read. Big up yourself, Nat, though. You did also always talk in those classes, because God knows it was nice to have somebody else. I'll answer the questions. I have no fear of looking stupid. I just don't care. I want to learn. That's why I'm at university. So I want to ask questions. I want to answer questions. I want to dive into it. That's why I'm studying literature. I want to understand and study the fucking literature. It doesn't matter that I was never going to get a first. I got a 2-1 at university, and I think I'm bloody proud of that. I was never going to get a first. I could have studied my little heart out, but I didn't know how neurodivergent I was until I left. And exams are not my friends. But even then, I didn't get a huge amount of firsts in my coursework type stuff, either in my essays or my creative pieces. I was often a pretty solid 2-1 in them as well. The only time I would have got a first is one essay I did in my first year, where I had points knocked off for being under the word count. I couldn't be above a certain amount. And I was told, probably would have been a first if you'd actually have completed this. It's like, yeah, but to be fair, I only read like 2 pages of the book. I couldn't. It was in my first semester of my first year. I was not in yet. But anyway, the thing with this book is that it's like a really perfect balance for studying, because it's short enough for a quick first read, so you can get your baseline idea of what it is, what it's about, and you get your, okay, here's everything I need going in. But despite only being a little over 100 pages, it is full to the brim of stuff to sink my teeth into, and I love that. I love books that are just full, even though there isn't actually physically that much to them. It's the place where I understand why people love poetry, because you can take away so much from so little, and obviously most poems aren't that long. I mean, you've got your epics and everything like that, but for the most part, poems and maybe a page or two. But unfortunately, I don't have weeks to spend with this. I don't also, nor do I have the ability to read half as much as I'd want to about it in terms of things like journals and articles and things like that. I mean, I'm sure I could find some stuff online or from my library, but I'm not at uni anymore. I haven't been for 2.5 years, nearly 3. Yeah, I graduated in 2021. That's when I graduated my master's. Sorry, I'm trying to remember. And objectively, when you are not in an academic setting of any kind, it is just harder to access stuff like that. So even if I wanted to sit here and do a full-length video diving into this as an essay, a video essay, it would be harder. And I'm sure there are ways around it. And maybe one day I will do that, because I want to write some essays, some video essays about some stuff that's important to me in the world of literature and things like that. But currently I'm not there. And, you know, maybe one day I will put myself back in an academic setting. Maybe one day I'll either do a PhD or I will do a degree in something else. But I doubt I'll ever do a PhD. And maybe one day I will do that illustration degree that I kind of want to do. But also then I think about it and then I'm like, do I want to go back to uni? Do I want to be in that academic setting again? Because, I mean, I enjoyed it, but also at the same time, I didn't have the best time at university. I have the most rose-tinted glasses about university. It is actually unreal when I actually stop and think about it. Anyway, I keep saying actually. This is a book to dive into, read, reread, study, discuss. And it's rare that I find books like that, because I'll be totally honest, you've seen my channel. I read a lot of fiction that is not in the realms of literary fiction in general, or stuff that is good for studying outside of for myself as a writer, because I know the stuff that I want to write. But this feels to me like something I would have loved to have dived into at university. I can't remember if there was something about dystopian fiction. I don't think there was a module. I know there was something about surveillance, like novels about surveillance, but that's not what this is about. This isn't that kind of dystopian fiction, but I'm sure I could have found a way to talk about it somewhere. But there's just this brilliant subtlety to this book. It is quiet, but it just clearly says so much, because it's absolutely not what I expected. I think I have an idea of dystopian novels where there's either a complete uprising or a collapse, and that's what I thought this was going to be. I thought this was going to be an uprising story, you know, loud, in-your-face rebellion type uprising, but it is quieter than that. And it's a really good reflection of the fact that not every act of rebellion is a riot. Sometimes it is simply continuing to exist in the face of a world that doesn't want you. And I love the way K. Dick portrays that here. You know, we have a world, if we take this real world for a second, we live in an exhausting world, it's true. And there is sometimes the want to constantly be protest, but sometimes I'm too tired to do that. I have a life that does not allow me to want to do that sometimes. I don't have a brain that allows me to do that sometimes, because I would be exhausted if I was constantly protesting everything that I saw. Sometimes I just want to exist. And quite frankly, I live on Turf Island. I live in an incredibly transphobic country, and God, I hope we can get rid of the Tories at this upcoming election. I believe it's this year. I hope we do, but I don't have hope. It's hard to have hope in this world, and I love reading a book like this, thinking about the quiet rebellions that we can do, and just existing as one's true self is such an act of defiance. I live my everyday life as an out and proud trans man, and there's nothing that my stupid fucking government can do about that. If my local stupid bloody Tory MP wants to do something about it, meet me one-on-one. I will kick you in the penis. For legal purposes, that is a joke. I do not incite acts of violence. I just think about them and kind of want to do them sometimes, but I'm not. I'm a good boy, so I would never. But the portrayal of it here is just that idea of, you've got the new people around you constantly, but it's the same circumstances. You have to keep creating. You have to remain an individual. You have to keep art alive. You have to keep on existing, because just doing that causes enough trouble to be a problem. And I love it, because being a problem doesn't have to be, like I say, it doesn't have to be loud. To people who hate you, be that as an individual or in concept, because there are people who will have never met me, but because they know I am trans, I am the enemy, I am to be hated. And it's shit, but it's true. My existence causes them problems. Good. Suffer about it. I'm not going anywhere. Suffer at my bare existence. Suffer about the fact that I had top surgery, because that annoys people. That I am destroying my body. I'm not. If anything, I'm improving it. And, there's the double standards of all that. Of if a cis woman gets her titties made bigger. Yes, there are still people who absolutely hate that. But in terms of your turfy types, it's no, these are women living their true forms and they're enhancing their womanhood. It's and if a trans woman takes HRT to get her own titties, God fucking forbid that she lives her own true femininity as well. But like I say, quiet problem causing is more my cup of tea than loud riots will ever be. That's not the kind of person that I am. And it's not something that I can never claim to be. I'll sign petitions. I'll live quietly. I'll keep existing. And I will cause some quiet problems. But I will never be able to be the sort of person that can go out in the streets and yell. I will keep causing my own issues. Permanently. Suck it up, people who don't like that. And I just think this was a great way for me to start 2024, because it's one of those things where I wouldn't usually read something like this necessarily. Most of the time when I find books like this, it's because I've seen somebody else talk about it, say online or whatever, or I've got it in a blind thing. So I've done blind date with a book before. I don't think my library's still doing that. Or 6 of the best, which they're not doing. But it's usually that this comes up in stuff like that, where I've sort of had it thrust upon me, and then I've gone, oh, actually, I really enjoyed this. I think this was 2020. I think this was my first year of doing it, which would have been 2022. I read Callacane, because I think that was a little before my Iron Maiden video that I read that. Or at least I published a video for it. So this rings in a similar line of that, where I was I never would have picked that up and I would have no idea about it. But it's something that I found that I really enjoyed, and I think about it a lot, and I kind of want to read it again, but I don't have time to read it again because I have so much to read. There are too many books in the world and I want to be able to read them all, but I can't. And I will say, I know what I'm reading next, but I don't know what my next review will be on here, because my next read will be a Bad Red Book Club book, but I also know how long they take me to write, especially. I mean, the reading does take longer than most, a little bit longer than most of my general reads, because I'm just taking notes constantly most of the time. I don't know how that will be with this one, and also the scripting tends to take a while, because I'm not like this, just doing overview type stuff. I am going through the whole feckin' plot. I mean, this might be a bit more generalised if it's good, because I can't remember how I did the last book I covered by her, but my hope is to still be able to upload more frequently than I did last year, if not weekly. I don't think it will be weekly, but while I'm on the scripting and editing stages of stuff, I want to still be able to keep reading so I can just read more. I don't have a high goal for reading this year, but I just want to be able to consume as much as humanly possible. Because there's too much in the world and I can't get through it all. But, like I have said, this is not my usual kind of book. I don't read a huge amount of dystopian stuff, and there's something just particularly unusual about, like, the storytelling here, that kind of non-linear storytelling. It is not your usual plotline kind of thing. So let me know if you read anything like this, or if you just have any dystopian novels that you've read and think I would enjoy. On my shelf, I do have Clockwork Orange and 1984, which somehow I have never read. Now, I did try reading Clockwork Orange a few years ago. I was still in college though, and the slang that was being used kind of tricked me up with it. I was struggling with it, but I'm going to try it again. Not sure how that will go, because I will still probably struggle with that a bit, but now that I have a lot more reading under my belt, and I have a lot more, like, difficult reading under my belt. There was a particular module I did during my masters which was about, like, postmodernism type stuff, and that was a difficult time for me, but I still, it helped me a lot with reading difficult fiction, and it helped me a lot with this, even if there are still things that I don't understand on my first read, because, like I said, I'm not studying it. Let me know what interesting dystopian novels that you've read before, if you think I would enjoy them. Also, tell me if you have any reading goals for 2024. Do you just have I would like to read more, I would like to read more in a certain genre or by certain kinds of authors, or is your goal just to hit a certain number? Because I wonder, I used to do the number thing, and I think it's just because I saw other people online doing it, and I always find it fascinating to find out how many I've read by the end of the year, but at this point I don't really care if I hit a certain number. But I've seen people who apparently have, like, I want to read 500 books in 1 year. Do you have a job? Or are you reading really short fiction all the time? Or is it because you're reading, like, quote-unquote easy fiction all the time? Like, because a lot of the times when I see people with really high reading goals, they're usually reading a lot of pop fiction type stuff. So I'm like, is it just because you're reading that? You're reading your sort of, your Colleen Hoovers, or your sort of, I mean, what's her face, Hannah Grace, anybody like that. Like, what are you reading? What are you doing with the rest of it? Is that all you're doing all day? And, like, mad respect to you if that is what you can do, because I can read a fair amount in 1 day. I read this in, I read this in 1 day, I think, or over the space of 2. I might have read a little bit beforehand, but I think I read this all in 1 day, because it's 100 pages, and that's pretty much, like, 2 to 3 hours of reading. So it's not difficult to read in one go, but, like, what do you want to get at? Or are you reading, like, a lot of graphic novels and short story type stuff? Because those are easy to read. Because every year where I've had high numbers, it's because I've had things like graphic novels, which you can read pretty. Anyway, what are your reading goals? If you have them for 2024, let me know in the comments. And also, feel free to like, subscribe, and all the other cringy shit I'm supposed to ask you to do. And most importantly, I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, a wonderful whenever you are watching this. I hope 2024 treats you with care, and I hope you take good care of yourself. Right.